Welcome to True Talk Tuesdays. Today's True Talk Tuesday is going to be talking about a saying that really bothers me in the martial arts world, which is, you can't teach heart. For me, that is total BS. For one, it's saying that toughness is a genetic trait where, from observation, it's not really something that you're physically born with, rather it's a behavior that you learn. And as I've said, behaviors are learned. While you can make a case that certain behaviors are more readily accepted into certain people, Russians, even then, their ancestors had to learn that behavior in order to pass it down. An example we can talk about is dogfighting. Now, right off the get-go, I don't support dogfighting in any way, shape, or fashion. I'm only bringing it up because it's relevant to this conversation. Now, there's an expression in dogfighting that's called game bred, which essentially means that those animals are bred for fighting, and they usually come from a lineage of other fighters. Now, in order to make a dog game bred or tough, the trainers are brutal with them. They whip them, beat them, starve them, house them in terrible conditions. And of course, they do all sorts of practices and whatnot to get that dog fit to fight. Now, generally it takes about 2 years before a dog is put in their first show, but a few months before that, they will test them to see if they're fit to fight. If they fail that test, they're abandoned, or in worst cases, they might be killed. Like I said, it's a brutal thing. Obviously, I don't support that. Now, I'm bringing it up because a lot of people right there will say, well, you see, that dog wasn't born tough. They killed it because they couldn't, it just didn't have it in it. This is where I disagree. I've taught over 1,000 students over the past 20 years in the martial arts. And the one thing I can tell you is that everybody is different, right? And what makes everybody different is essentially, one, genetics, but two, is their upbringing. Now, I can bring up an example where we can have a pair of twins raised in the same household, go to the same school, all the same classes, and yet you can have two very different people once they're grown up. One could be very successful, the other might not be. And I'm sure you have seen examples in your life of that. And in the case where we're talking about twins, we're talking about people who are genetically equal. So the point being that the upbringing or the nurturing process is far more important than the genetic component. Now, coming back to this dogfighting example, that dog that maybe wasn't passed perhaps needed a different training regimen in order to communicate that same message of building this heart. Or perhaps it just needed more time. We will never know. Now, another thing you need to consider as well is, imagine we had, let's say, a champion dog that's been in whatever dog fights and has won. What if we jumped back in time before it ever received any training and just had it live a normal life in a house? And then, at that 2-year point, just yank it out and put it in a dog fight. Do you think that same dog is going to be tough? Chances are probably not. Right? It's like, for the human equivalent is the army. In the army, they have basic training, you have the SEALs and all that, and those training regimens are also brutal. And they're trying to develop discipline, loyalty, toughness, amongst other attributes. Now, not everybody makes it through basic training, which again, you can say, oh, well, you see, they don't have it. Again, same thing. Everybody's different. And as an instructor, I find it as my job to try to pass on or communicate my message in as many different ways as possible. Some people need more time before they're going to absorb a message. And when you're talking about physical traits, they're usually a little easier to pass, like a technique, like an arm bar or whatnot. Beliefs, concepts, and ideas are usually much more difficult to absorb. And this is why a good coach is able to pass on that message in many different ways, hoping to be able to get that idea, that concept, or that belief into that person. Now, it's easy to dismiss people that didn't, pass the basic training or are not, tough, and just saying, oh, they just don't have it in them. All right, it's easy to say that, but let's think a little bit. Really, what does it mean when you say someone doesn't have heart, right? Or rather, what does it mean to have heart? Well, in the martial arts, they usually say you have heart when you're able to pass or ignore physical and mental stresses in order to accomplish a goal. For example, in my fight in Bodog, fight Costa Rica, I had fought through a much larger opponent, short notice, and had my nose broken in 3 places, bleeding like a faucet. I still came back and won that fight by TKO. The commentators kept saying, oh, I'm made of tough stuff, I have heart, right? Now, I'm sure lots of people have done similar things, and I know they have, and you can name a million examples. But that's generally what we mean when we have heart. Somebody who's able to push through physical or mental stress in order to achieve a goal. Now, in my case, nose broken and all that, the average person usually would quit at that point. Why? Fear. Right? When someone breaks their nose, there's a fear, a natural fear of injury, which is really a fear of death. When you look at the animal kingdom, any injury can be a death sentence. If I get even just a small cut, I can get an infection, which can end up killing me. That's why the animal kingdom, us included, are usually born cowards. It's a protective mechanism. We can't afford to be injured, right? So when you say someone has heart, what you're really saying is that they're able to conquer their fear of death, albeit for a brief period of time in a very specific circumstance. There go a fight. When we frame having heart in that light, I think everybody would agree that this is something that can be learned. Being a human being, or any animal really, we're always conquering fears throughout our life. The easy one is one I think most people can identify with is in the first person that you meet romantically, that you're going to ask out or whatever. Usually you have a fear of rejection, and you have to conquer that fear in order, to mate and get that person that you're looking for. And there are countless books on how to court people. There's courses and all sorts of stuff. So conquering fear is not something that is born. It's not a genetic trait. It's a behavior that you learn, right? Some people are more natural and they're Casanovas and they don't have that many issues, but other people do. So it is a behavior that has to be learned. And I'm telling you, my opinion, having heart is a behavior that's learned. I wouldn't consider myself being born with heart. I couldn't run a mile without stopping until like 6 months of wrestling training, where I was finally able to. Right? So you wouldn't have seen me run and said, "Oh, Dave has heart." I know you said, pardon my French, Dave's a bitch. He stopped after running a block and he was walking, So I don't see myself as someone being born with heart. It's something that I learned. How did I learn it? Lots of training, good coaches, pushing me beyond what I thought was possible and motivating me to be an achiever. All right, so I don't want to go into a long dialogue about how to build heart. Rather, I'm just telling you right now, when someone says you can't teach heart, I disagree heartily. Pun intended. Thanks for listening in. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to comment below. Or if you disagree, agree, let me know. Again, I started these True Talk Tuesdays to create a dialogue, so feel free to engage me. And like I said, I don't mind if you think I'm a jerk, let me know. And give me your reasons why. And I'll argue with you and see if we can learn something about this. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be alerted when the next video drops. Now, if you want to get more videos like this on a daily basis, go and visit my membership site at ffacoach.com. We have online video curriculums, our daily videos, and you can get bonus courses like the Kimura Trap system for free when you enroll today. So go ahead and help support the channel and visit today.